Tina, thank you so much for joining us today on the Cancer Project podcast.
Thank you, David. It's such an honor to be here.
Well, you have an amazing story. You're the CEO of MEVION, one of the two primary proton therapy equipment vendors active today. But I'd love to hear how you ended up in the role that you're in today. Tell us about your background, where you grew up. How did you end up working for a proton therapy company?
Oh, that's a great question, David. You know, it's clearly my privilege to be able to have this position, lead a extremely dedicated and also very intelligent and passionate team in proton therapy. I did not grow up in the space, actually. And I grew up in China. I was trained as a biologist.
Okay.
And I always know I want to do something in the healthcare space. And I never really go to medicine. I think that the blood really scared me off.
Yep.
So I didn't train that way. But I've always been a STEM major and learned biology in undergrad. Then I came to the US for my PhD in chemistry. I studied biochemistry and biophysics there. I thought of it's a great experience, a lot of good training in the PhD program, really hone those analytical skills and really sort of prepare me in the later stage of my life. Then I worked for a large pharma company as a research scientist. Then move on really being attracted to the dynamic nature of the business world. So I went to Harvard Business School to transition to be a business person. And over there, you know, the school clearly has a mission of educating leaders who make a difference in the world, right? That kind of really planted a very strong seed about what we want to do is make a major difference in the world. And for me, healthcare, how to make a difference in healthcare has always been a question. So I started after Harvard Business School as an investor and also working with, and also invested in a lot of fantastic companies, you know, see their tremendous amount of growth. And in 2018, I had the pleasure to be picked by the board of MEVION Medical Systems, you know, to lead the company, lead its operation. You know, that's my first CEO gig, to be frank. You know, it took me a while to adjust to this kind of leadership role, which is clearly very different from a finance world, but I've been enjoying it. So today I'm really honored to be here.
Yeah. So, and where did you do your PhD?
I did it at Princeton. And so I studied chemistry. You know, followed Professor George McClendon.
And so you said you got picked by the MEVION board to be the CEO. What was your connection with MEVION, or how did you come across that company?
So our investment fund, you know, invested in MEVION. So I was a board advisor for a couple of years. Then that lead to the decision, especially when we're thinking about global expansion for MEVION Medical Systems. So, you know, I think over the last 7+ years, I think that one of the major accomplishments from my perspective has been, you know, international expansion as well as new product introduction.
So that first instance where you're learning about MEVION, the company, or I guess learning about proton therapy, what was that like? What kind of struck you, or what stands out to you as you think back to learning about proton therapy for the first time?
Yeah, so as an investor, I was very used to hearing new technologies on many fronts, especially in the healthcare space. But proton therapy, you know, was struck to me as something, you know, with so much potential, but it also being so underutilized due to a lot of economic factors, which in business, you know, it would be a prime problem to solve, right? So it really piqued my interest. And we clearly see, you know, over the last, say, 60 years, all the clinical evidence showing the superior performance, you know, for cancer patients using proton therapy. However, even today, right, when I was looking at the company, that's 2014 or 2015, you know, it was even smaller field, but that was, you know, less than, you know, probably 100-ish centers globally, right? In the US, about 30 centers, you know, ish, a little bit over 30 centers at that time. So that was a huge underdevelopment of a sector. So for any business person, you know, looking for, you know, opportunity to invest and put their time on is you want to have, really concrete science, right? The biology, the physics, it's all demonstrated, right? So that's the dream space. And also you want a huge amount of upside, which is today, for the typical LINAC, you have globally more than 10,000 LINAC rooms,
right?
Even in the US, about 4,000 LINAC rooms. But here, even today, we have a little bit close to 50, Proton centers.
Right.
So that's at least, 1 order of magnitude or even 2 order of magnitude kind of growth potential. So that's for me is, a dream place, for people to make a mark. When you say make an impact, in the society or make a difference, in the world. So these are the clear areas, people can plug in and make a difference.
So what was the hardest part of the transition for you going from board advisor, investor, you have a science background, you did go to business school, but then now you're running this company. What were some of the big challenges for you right off the bat?
Yeah, so, I didn't grow up in the radiation oncology space, right? Learning about the business, the nature of the business, the long sales cycle, how to work in a community, right? Get to know the people, has been, the first challenge. So I remember when I started the job, I was like, maybe I should be really, sort of raise my sleeves and get my hands wet.
Yeah.
I should really know the who's in this community. So I asked my people, say, who are the top 5 in radiation oncology and make a major impact in proton therapy, right? So I kind of get a list and get to know them. I think quite a few of them are on your podcast, right? Like Dr. Steve Frank and, all these, major leaders in our space. So these are the early people I kind of get to know, try to, through their eyes, right? These are my potential. They represent my customer base, right? What do they think? What are their pain points? What can an innovative device company, come in to solve these, issues, these challenges, right? Then the second part is internal operation, right? As a finance person, you probably in general don't get much opportunity to go very deep about the internal, operation, which go from, say, early stage design, and then to, the design challenges, to the R&D, efficiency, then go downstream for production, right? Their supply chain, then all these very detailed problems. I mean, proton therapy is a very complex machine, right? Like more than 10,000 parts, put it all together.
Wow.
Right? So few people had the opportunity to, to tackle that problem. Typical software or typical vendor provided tools are really not used to for these relatively low volume but very high value kind of product production, right? Then afterwards you have the service business, right? The customer satisfaction has always been our number one corporate goal, right? Then how do we make sure the machine constantly running and also giving them more and more upgrade as the year goes by, right? This is not just a piece of equipment we roll out the door.
Right.
This is a living machine, right? Then they kind of move along with the societal, technology advancement, to deliver even better functionality. So all these things I have to sort of start from square one. I remember I was talking to an advisor about, hey, how would I transition to be, a world-class CEO? That's my goal, right? Clearly, not there yet, but on the road, hopefully. Then, so he was like, hey, maybe get your, technology people educate you. So I was, very fortunate, to be surrounded by a group of true experts. They're the world-class, I truly believe we have the world-class, the number one team in proton therapy to educate me. Then initially that was Mark Jones, my chief technology officer. Right, so he and my VP of advanced development put a curriculum together, just teach the CEO, about the products and all these design choices we're making. Then I gradually think, maybe I should open it up. Then we become lunch sessions. So in addition to me, all my other employees and also including some new employees can learn about the basic fundamentals about some of the design choices we made. What are the unique advantages we do? So all these things help me, to transition from a finance person into an operational role.
What have you learned about yourself through that process?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are clearly tough moments. Tough moments and, the tough challenges. Running an organization as a leader, some people may be born with it, then some people may just learn a bit harder, right? So for me, understand my inner voice, inner strengths, has been very critical, right? And leading the team, especially when I lead without the technical advantages, right? A lot of people, my predecessors, all had decades of deep, knowledge and, network in the space. And so, I kind of lead from a very different angle, right? So I have to, lead by example, lead from a little bit more softer side, because I do not provide too much of a technical advantages or advice, to the table, right? That has not been my strengths in terms of value add. I think I lead by a little bit more of the leadership spirit and the strive for excellence, right? I have to push people, right? There are many, many times we have to make trade-offs, right? These are tough trade-offs. No machine is perfect, right? Then they all have their own advantages. Then the trade-off has to be guided by certain corporate principles. Then in the end, you call it culture. Right. So that's, the sort of the concrete part of the culture. Culture could be a very vague word. Then in the end, it's what people do. Then these things, I don't do it. It's every single small decisions you make. Do you do 2 a.m. shipping for your customer?
Okay.
Right? So that's a cost associated with that. That's a manpower associated with that. Then how would you make an operation 24/7?
Right.
When we commit to our customer, we do 24/7 services, right? Every minute count for their machine. Right? What does that really mean? Then you have to build an organization to work around that. So all these things, I didn't get there from first try, right? I learned it gradually. And when you ask me what I learned about, leadership, these are the small things here and there, compass into. Then I think all in all, as a leader, you have to ask yourself, what do you accomplish, right? What do you want to achieve? Then what's needed to achieve that? If we do not go above and beyond, if we do not strive for excellence, if we do not have a patient-centric, patient-focused culture, why are we here? Right? So every day you have to ask yourself these tough questions, right? These questions are not easy to be addressed. And they don't come in the vacuum, right? They have to be, every person in the organization have to follow all these are so-called corporate value, right? Then so that's what I see. Then the corporate value, I have to be the person, believe in and drive for it, right? So that's what I call leadership.
So you talked a little bit about a patient focus. You're an equipment vendor, you make a machine. Most of your team is not going to directly interact with patients. How do you make sure that the people that work at MEVION that are putting parts together or doing engineering drawings or installing systems maintain or have that connection with the patient?
That's a great question. It's really difficult, right? Because most of my people walk, in their cubicle. They do intensive engineering drawings, right? They use, SolidWorks and all these fancy tools, right? Then what do we guide them to say why you are doing this? Why do they need to come in weekends, to finish this? What's the importance of this timeline, right? Why do we have to have 2 a.m., logistics team, right? That's so inconvenient, right? For anyone's life, right? So, and also on Father's Day, I sometimes have to call certain people in, to do certain things, right? So how do we bring a culture to be patient-focused? And we did, I am also collaborating with our people operations team. My VP, Sandra Roussel, did a fantastic job for building a culture so that our people in Littleton, Massachusetts understand what's out there. In the US, our sites running, and also even in Europe, our sites running, in China, our sites running, we're a global company, right? So we bring patients to our facility. And I think we actually bring one of the pediatric patients twice, Gracie Line. She was, sort of a poster child for one of the presidential pediatric cancer initiative. And I think in 2019, she attended the State of Union address. So, because of her history of, become a cancer survivor as a pediatric patient, she was treated on our machine at Raubach Johnson Hospital. And so we bring that story to our employee base to show how good her recovery has been. Then we brought her in a year after she was treated. We brought her in almost 5 years after she was treated, right? Her recovery journal clearly showed the benefit of proton therapy, the impact to herself, to her family. Then her parents both came along with her and also her little brother. So her mom shared the story about how they are so fortunate to be living 20 minutes away from a proton center. But her mom is also a very active patient advocate, looking at working with other pediatric patients. These things are not available for super majority of pediatric patients. So then we tell our people, tell our employees, why is that? Why is that? Yeah. Everything what they do day in, day out make a difference in the world. If we have more machines closer to the pediatric patients, more patients are going to get treated. Because that's a group benefit the most from proton therapy. But at the same time, that is a group least mobile. Need the most of having the greater access easier access to proton therapy, which today we have not get there yet. So I think these things clearly make a difference. And last June, we had a patient coming from Huntsman Cancer Institute, a 12-year boy. With a sort of unique, with a kind of a brain cancer, was treated there. He wants to be a goalie. That's his life dream, right? Yeah. On a football team. Okay. Then, he wants to be a quarterback on a football team. Okay. So that's his dream. And then how he and his father talk about how they, after proton therapy, they go back to a normal life. Then he can go back to his football practice and to realize his dream. I do not know whether he will be the next, Tom Bradley or not, but let's rooting for him. Yeah. But he's going to have a fantastic life. We also have some, young adult patients coming to our facility, and we also send our employees over to clinical sites and rotate them in and out so that they understand the intensity of clinical treatment, why every minute matter, right? Why can't I just come in at 6 a.m. instead of 2 a.m. to get that part shipped? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So then they, through these processes, they understand it. Then we also bring our field service engineers come back. They are the group of our employees closest to our customers, right? I told them, me, Tina, you, as the CEO of the company, I actually don't represent the company. You guys serving our machine, carrying our mission out, you truly represent the company because you interact with our customers day in, day out. Yep. They see you, right? Every day. Their machine needs your support. So we bring them back to Littleton, Massachusetts, our headquarters, to give our employees what kind of life they living, right? When the machine is down, they sometimes have to work 20 hours a day. I hate to do that, right? I hate anyone to do that. Right, but sometimes things do happen. Right, their devotion really is infectious. To our employees, and we want to look up to them. Yeah. And we have a lot of awards and advocate for these kind of driving for excellence, these kind of customer patient-centric performances. So that's amazing, and I think that's. It's such a great approach. I'm on the clinical side, working at a proton center, and so I do have the opportunity to interact with patients on a day-to-day basis, and so I'm getting that daily reminder of why we do what we do, and so I think it's so important to make that connection upstream a little bit with an equipment vendor like MEVION and connect your team to those patients. So that's amazing that you guys are doing that. What has it meant for you personally to get the opportunity to work in the field of cancer? Because cancer is one of those things that impacts everybody. It impacts friends, it impacts family members. So what has it meant for you personally to be able to be involved in the field of cancer care? I think that for me, this also shaped my character, right? So I think for me, the proudest moment has always been to a grand opening of our cancer centers, right? Then to see all these great advancements, our customer or other, proton users collected to show the benefit of this modality, right? So that kind of bring value, to the life, right? Sometimes I told the patients coming to visit us, I said, you give all of us meaning in life, right? Making money is important. I don't want to diminish that, right? But that's probably not the only thing in life, right? There are much bigger goals. So when you are thinking about, hey, ask yourself, are you making a difference in the world or not, right? Then all these technical risk we're taking on product innovation, then the things we're doing, driving ourselves to that excellence, which clearly is very, very hard, right? Then, you can't just, lock work, at work, then say, oh, bye, I'm going to take a vacation. A lot of times we just don't have that luxury to do that, right? So these are very hard choices. You ask yourself why you're doing that. Right, so all these clear evidence of the benefit out of proton therapy keep us going. And for me personally, that means a lot. And I feel like, hey, I can see the fruit, of our hard work directly, right? Then I'm kind of luckier than some of our employees because I got the good opportunity to celebrate these moments really, with my customers when they open the center, when they treat the first 100 patients, first 1,000 patients, first 2,000 patients. These are, proud moments, I will never forget in my life.
Yeah. Tell us about the history of MEVION as a company, because I think the company itself has a really fascinating story.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I also want to bring the history of MEVION in the context of history of proton therapy. And at this Astro, we're running a corporate event called Proton Rising, celebrating 60 years of innovation. That's 60-year innovation that started from 60 years ago. Harvard Cyclotron Lab started treating cancer patients with proton therapy. Then they treated close to 10,000 cancer patients over 40-year history. That's a great milestone, which we call it as proton therapy 1.0. Then Loma Linda and Dr. Slater and his team, right, brought proton therapy to hospital setting. That's the so-called proton therapy 2.0. Then those are during the technology at that time, the cyclotron, the synchrotron, the accelerators, very large. It's huge and very heavy and very expensive. So with that kind of technology, you have to essentially use one accelerator to power multiple treatment rooms, right? So that's kind of being limited by that time. But at the same time, that leads to very high cost of the project. Normally, the cost of project is $200 million, ish kind of range, and the size of the facility is the size of a football field. Right. Then 100-yard length and all that. Right. So very few, sort of institutions can afford that. Then, so after Loma Linda started treating in 1990, right, I call it Euro 2.0, the Mass General Hospital started treating in 2001. So they also have those we call multi-room systems, but they truly paved the road about proton therapy in the hospital setting. MEVION came in, we were founded in 2004. So many of our founders came from Mass General Hospital, and also some of them worked at Harvard Cyclotron Lab. So we would not be here today without all the fruits and the experience gained from the year 2.0 and 1.0 and 2.0, right? So we came out, the founding team came out, have a different vision. We believe proton therapy should be accessible to all medical institutions need this advanced radiation therapy for their subset of cancer patients who need this unique, more precision radiation therapy, right? So we have a very different design. So the company was born on the back of a piece of a napkin. Actually.
Wow.
Then that's a dream. So the dream was if we can design something so small, the accelerator, right, then we can put it on gantry, then treat all 360 degrees around the patient. We can achieve meet all the clinical requirements at the same time, drop the total cost of the project by 10x, drop the size by 10x, right? So that's what, we start out to do. And so
so the back of a napkin, who were the people involved at that point?
So one of the technology founder is Dr. Ken Gall, who used to be the head of medical physics at Mass General Hospital, and with some other elite hospital, he contributed as well. So he was truly the mind behind some of the early design. We also have quite a few people like a Dr. Skip Rosenthal, on the founding team as well. And he has a tremendous of depth of clinical usage of proton therapy in a medical setting. He is a medical physicist by training himself as well. So he worked at Harvard Cyclotron Lab, and then he also later on become the chief physicist at Mass General Hospital. So these are just a couple names.
Yeah.
We also are fortunate to have some of the advisors, working with us to help us in terms of design. So these are people with very in-depth experience from the Harvard Cyclotron days and on the cyclotron, in general, in terms of design. And also sitting in Massachusetts, one of the benefit is a tremendous amount of talent, right?
Yes.
So our early fundamental, core IP was co-developed with MIT.
Okay.
And there's plasma science, the fusion lab. So all these things adding together, so we were able to have the globally, still even today, the smallest, self-shielded, high energy proton accelerator for medical use.
Okay.
So this is a very high requirement because it's for medical use.
Yep.
It's not a research or, a national lab research project. You do it just one by itself, do it once, right? Then here it has to have all the commercial characteristics in terms of controllability, robustness, and reproducibility and all that kind of stuff on a very precision kind of requirement. A lot of the beam characteristics within sub-millimeter, right?
Right.
So even earlier stage, on the cyclotron space, there are a lot of the requirement is a micron kind of precision, right? So these are the things really kind of bring us off the ground. Then for us, the major advancement is we have early believers. We cannot just survive as a technology company. We have to be part of a value added in the community. Washington University, Barnes-Jewish Hospital was the first sort of a strong backer willing to commit, use our machine. So we need users, right? Then people believed in our design, believed in the future of proton therapy. When we were born at that time, because the dominant technology has always been those large systems, they're multi-room. So there were a lot of naysayers. Naysayers in terms of whether single room is the future or not. Then naysayers in terms of whether we can be successful in our development or not. So that's been a long journey. Obviously, we have a lot of investors supported us, through the process. It was a long and difficult journey, and it took us almost 10 years from the founding of the company to the first patient treatment in December 2013, led by Dr. Jeff Riley and his team at WashU Barnes-Jewish Hospital. We're extremely grateful for this partnership. That's our sort of first chapter of our corporate development. Then we also, further augmented the machine. They added the so-called pencil beam technology, which is a little bit, a more precision way to deliver proton therapy, just to put it a little bit simpler for your audience. Then we have Georgetown University as our first adopter, to have their system. They treated the first patient in March 2018. So these are, early adopters. We wouldn't be here without all these visionary early adopters believed in us, believe what we can do, right? So moving us forward. And today we're in another era. We think that, so in 2004, we believe that MEVION clearly championed this idea of single-room proton therapy, right? So that's the proton therapy era 3.0, right? Then today we're sort of in a era 4.0 by making it even smaller, right? We miniaturize that even further. We reduce the volume by 80%, by 80%, so that it can fit into a typical LINAC room. Then, so we call it Proton Therapy Euro 4.0. Then over that journey, that's Stanford University, Stanford Healthcare become the first adopter and being a very strong backer of our technology, because they also believe that, yes, the 3.0 is beautiful, but there's still many institutions do not have extra space and all that to house this 3-story machine, right? So, or build a separate structure on it, right? So what we provide here is a truly integrated, everything can fit into a typical LINAC room.
Right.
And LINAC is 90% plus of how cancer patients being treated by radiation oncology, by radiation therapy, right? So this is clearly the way how we want to bring this modality to more institutions. So after Stanford adopted the machine, we announced it 3 years ago at Astro, and we subsequently have quite a few, other institutions, including NCIs like University of Nebraska Medical Center adopting it. Then we also have large community hospital like a Baycare House and also the Atlantic Health System, Morristown Hospital, adopting it. Then most recently, we're extremely proud of having the hospital Loma Linda Medical Center.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Adopting this technology to become their chapter 2.0.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, all these forces adding together, demonstrate, the path we're on, which is to provide sort of a clinical system really delivers superior treatment capability, right? Using proton therapy at the same time, without, miniaturize this, footprint and make it much more available. Then not only without compromise of the functionality, we believe through the next, years, we are going to demonstrate there are certain indications we can show a lot of superiority of treating it, using this further miniaturized machine. Because the major difference of the treatment, compared to conventional treatment, is the patient are not treated supine position.
Right.
They're not laying on the couch or laying on a bed anymore, right? But that has been the paradigm of the last 50 years, right? Moving forward, we're going to treat patient upright, right? Which is being made possible by our excellent partner, Leo Cancer Care. I know you're also going to interview their visionary leader, Stephen Cohen, Stephen Tao, right? So I think that's a great partnership. That's why I said over again, we are a player and a contributor and also benefiter of this ecosystem, right? We need the partners work with us. We also have partner like research. They do treatment planning system, right? Johan Lauf has been their leader, have done tremendous amount of work to make proton therapy, to do the treatment system so that the best physics can be utilized, translate into medicine, right? Then we also have partner like CQ Medical, so they support us with all these positioning tools so that we can make a patient more comfortable, right? And they can be treated, with higher precision. That's a lot of, requirement to do that those way. So I think this is a very interesting year, and that's why, this Astro is super important to us.
Yeah, and congratulations. You guys had a big announcement that you received FDA approval for the MEVION FIT system, which is this compact proton therapy system that with the cyclotron and with the patient positioner, you talked about the chair or treating patients upright, all of that can fit into a standard linear accelerator vault. And you mentioned earlier that there's about 4,000 linear accelerator vaults in the United States. So it really does open up a market for proton therapy that maybe didn't exist 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. I do have a question for you though on this. When MEVION first came out with this idea of doing a single room proton center, there was naysayers. There's people that maybe are questioning the viability of treating patients in an upright system. We can use the word naysayers still with this.
Still naysayers,
you guys,
always.
As a company,
when
you guys
become a trailblazer, there are always naysayers.
You guys are used to having to address naysayers, and of course, MEVION ended up proving out that for many institutions, a single room proton center was actually the best option. It wasn't even just an option, it was the best option. So what do you say to people that maybe are questioning whether or not patients can get treated in the upright position, or that this whole paradigm shift for how we think about delivering radiation can work?
Yeah, I think there are obviously a lot of technical reasons we can go into in terms of why we believe this treatment has a lot of advantages, right? I want to kind of maybe address this question from a little bit different angle, not from the technical angle. I know Stephen Tao can also address that, very well, and with also the clinician support. I think from my perspective, in my entire career, sort of investing now today, leading innovative companies, sort of addressing the concerns of naysayers has always been part of the strengths of let us moving forward, right? So the naysayer have a lot of questions about, hey, whether pediatric can be treated, right? Then how do we deal with motion, right? And all these things. We have thought about that all along for years, right? If not decade, right? So we did not take that step very lightly. We have a lot of solutions, I think, preempt all these questions. So then we also want to hear other questions. We have designs we have not addressed. So I want to talk to these naysayers, understand their concerns, and the design experiments to address that, right? I myself actually, have the pleasure of converting some naysayers. I think, say, for example, Dr. Charles Inc., the chairman of University of Nebraska Medical Center. 2020, when we launched the product, for the S250-FIT, for the upright, treatment modality, he wasn't a believer. He was not a believer. He had a lot of concerns, right? At that time, he was looking at our gantry-based system. However, he is the first group come to Littleton, Massachusetts, our headquarters, to see it firsthand, how we designed it, how we address these questions he had in his mind. He wants to treat peds. We want to support ped treatment as well. Stanford wants to support ped treatment as well, right? Dr. Haneker has done a lot of work, to show how peds can be treated on this upright system. Then he also had a lot of questions about how we address motions, right? Especially when patients are rotating, right? So we showed him all the lasers we're using, the 2D X-rays to make clinicians be comfortable in that environment. So a month after his visit, he was actually the first group. He wrote me an email. He said, Tina, I'm going to bet my retirement saving on the success of this product. I was like, I really feel flattered. I was like, hey, you are the neighbor of Sage of Omaha. Right? I don't think I'm qualified to advise you how you spend your retirement savings. Right? But I remember what Warren Buffett always say. Invest in US, never bet against America.
Oh, right.
Okay. So sort of working with MEVION, a US-based company, from my perspective, is invest in US. And I want to say, never bet against the ingenuity of the MEVION engineers. We will figure out a way, right? Through the process, the product won't be perfect, right, from day one. But it's a continuous, engineering process, evolution of excellence. So I have all the confidence we will be addressed all these clinical concerns you guys raise, and we're working very closely with our partners to do that one step at a time and get the first patient treated, hopefully by year end at Stanford. That's what they announced at their symposium. And then we get more patient treated. We look at all different conditions, right? So in the end, we are a solution provider. I truly believe is that the culture of being able to and dare think out of the box, making impossible possible, right? The strive for excellence, these core characteristics of MEVION brought us today, right? Then it's going to guide us for the future decades to bring this better, proton therapy, superior proton therapy to more cancer patients.
Well, that's great. And I really like the approach that you just described there, which is you actually welcome the feedback and commentary from naysayers or people that are questioning how or why this system or this setup can work, because it's going to make the system better ultimately. Answering all of those questions.
It's part of the ecosystem. Even the naysayers, it's part of the value add. Right? But we have seen a tremendous amount of conversion from the bystander naysayers, right, to join this. Then let's build it together, right? So there are quite a few other, major institutions are really working with us, try to be problem solvers, because the fundamental message is so strong. If we can bring proton therapy in a typical LINAC room, right, then we can make this modality much more usable, right? It's not going to be a corner situation like today, right? So we want it to be closer to patients, so all clinicians who want to use proton therapy can have this too, right? It's not going to be, all cancer patients being treated by proton, probably not needed.
Right.
But there's a very sizable portion of cancer patients can materially benefit from this modality. This is what we strive for. We're not here yet. We're not here even in the US. And then globally, the situation is even more,
So talk to me a little bit. Well, and I do want to say this. I'm a believer in upright treatment because I've seen it firsthand. The Oklahoma Proton Center, which is where I work most of the time, had a chair. And we treated patients in a chair. It was I think, maybe in terms of modern, like 2.0 proton therapy, I think it was the first chair that was developed. And then the second iteration of that chair ended up getting installed at the facility in Chicago, the ProCure Center in Chicago. And to this day, they still treat patients upright. So it absolutely can be done. Now, we didn't have all of the fancy imaging and the vertical CT and all the alignment and everything, and of course pencil beam scanning and all of the great things that you guys have incorporated into your system. But it certainly can be done. And the most important thing with the whole endeavor is it really is about creating more access for patients. It's the whole point of doing it. Is even if you say, well, we're going to be able to treat 95% of the patients that you could treat on a gantry. Maybe there's a few patients that you can't treat on a gantry. Those are 95% of patients that in a particular market may otherwise not have access to protons. At a place like Stanford that maybe wouldn't have been able to install a gantry-based system, cost, size constraints, permitting, whatever it is, now they've created access for patients to proton therapy. So
I do want to acknowledge all these early efforts you guys are doing, you guys did, and the Northwestern did, right? That's inspiration. Right. We also see some of the drawbacks of that treatment, right?
Yeah.
So what we can improve on. So I think all innovations most innovations don't come out of thin air. They come from the past experience. Yeah. What you guys did, the pioneering work you guys did, is really paving the road for us to design this product. We work with our partner, Leo Cancer Care, because of their ingenuity, the design they can do, the most advanced robotics technology bring us to the table, right? So that we can control these motions and all that at a very high precision millimeter kind of precision, which is very difficult to do, right? Say 10 or 20 years ago. So these are the things we kind of benefit from, and we're very much open-minded and look forward to other new ideas, new technology, especially with AI and all that, bring to the table. Then we can maybe do it even faster, easier, right, at an even lower cost. So we're, I think this is, a great time for innovators.
Yeah.
And
I've got a question for you that I've always wondered. Where did the name MEVION come from?
Oh, that's a great question. We use that to test people. It's part of our interview questions for people interview for physics or engineering related jobs. Yeah. They say, hey, can you figure out what MEVION really mean, right?
I have a guess.
Obviously, it's a made up word. Yeah, maybe tell me your guess.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and I may be way off on this, but MEV, mega electron volt, and then ION, ion.
Yeah, you're hired.
Okay, all right, good. That's the test. I thought that there was maybe like a merging of those two.
Yes, it is.
Did somebody, is there a person that gets credit for coming up with that name?
I think it's probably Lionel Boucher. He is our senior VP of commercial success. And then, he was on the marketing team at that time. Yeah. And, but you see name. How we kind of look at the space, from a more physics kind of perspective. Yeah. He was a medical physicist by training before. Yeah. So
that's great.
That's a fun part, working at MEVION. That's all the clever things you kind of can appreciate in life.
So tell us what's happening with the Chinese market and proton therapy. That's not something that we hear a lot about here in the United States, but I know it's near and dear to your heart. What's happening in China with proton therapy?
Yeah, I think this is, obviously a huge population, underserved market. And, proton therapy was introduced to that market much later than any other large major markets, say Europe, Japan. So that represents today one of our fastest growing markets, because of market demand. So I think with the economic, proton therapy in the past, with articles, writing about it, has always been very unequal in terms of distribution. Then it's strongly correlated with economic development at the country level, at the state level, even sometimes at city level. So there were studies being done looking at that, right? So I think China market today, have probably close to a dozen, very active projects working on. Then it's going to be, the government just issued a 65 something, licenses.
Oh, wow.
And that's, essentially proton therapy, heavy ion, and all that. So that's, a very vibrant market. I think that for the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a very significant market.
Yeah.
Contributing to many more patients get treated. And the China market, we have our first machine in China installed at an elite hospital called Tongji Hospital in Wuhan City, in the Hubei province. And they started treating December last year, 2024. So over the first only 8 months, they actually treated more than 200 patients across a variety of indications, from kids as young as 6-year-old to older adult of 80 plus.
Right.
So very broad age population, a very broad indication, mix, like head and neck, these extremely complex cases, and the CNS, CSI, lung, breast, prostate. So I was extremely proud of that customer, and we were able to provide more than 99% uptime, for that machine overseas. So that's, a great, kudos to our team, especially the field service team, running that site, from the US and with a lot of local support from our China team. So that's a great outcome from our perspective. But we see many more. And I'm actually going next month to China for another rigging ceremony for a top 5 hospital in Chongqing. So Chongqing Tumor Hospital. So we have a couple more, obviously installing at a various stage in China. So that's a very exciting market with large patient population. So for us, also drive us in terms of our product development roadmap about how do we treat it more efficiently and how do we, educate the market when physicists, dosimetrists, including physicians, are sort of their understanding on proton therapy in terms of experts are not as abundant as markets like US with 60 years of history, treating, So those are the material challenges we are facing, but that's also opportunities for vendors like us to bring value to the table in terms of training courses and also international collaboration. For example, our physicians at Tongji Hospital were being sent over to Penn Medicine. They have a fantastic training program, Although they didn't use my machine yet, but you have, decades of experience, treating with proton, also very comprehensive training program for physicians and also for other supporting staff, So we send them over there. They felt like it's a great learning course that helped a lot. Then they kind of brought the message back to China, breeding the local community. So I think we're going to do more, We're going to also grouping our customers together, then providing better, training opportunities. One of the major obstacles with proton therapy training from a vendor perspective is for typical gantry-based system, we do not have a gantry in the factory. No vendor has that in the factory compared to any other medical equipment, So it's too large to put it together. Then right now with the FIT system, we have a prototype, from start to beginning, sort of full workflow, putting our factory. So we feel like, with this product line, we can do even better in terms of a training on the machine, how to use it. Then because for this sector, which I think rests on its precision, rests on its deep understanding about the medicine, the physics, the interplay of that, So training is an integral part of it. Then we cannot afford mistakes to be made, on patients.
So are you selling the FIT system internationally, or is that just a U.S. product right now?
So right now, our announced customers are in the U.S. We clearly are looking for international expansion opportunities, and we actually are in the process of register this product in EU for the CE mark. So it's
so there's still some regulatory approvals that you need to get through.
Working process and all that. So, and also many international countries have their own regulatory bodies to govern this machine. And one of the ecosystem, I do want to add is the open-minded nature of the regulators, the regulatory ecosystem we live in. It's very fortunate to be a US-based company with a very open-minded FDA, the regulatory body. When they look at the product, when they look at our more than 8,000 pages of submission document, they're extremely open-minded. They work with us. They ask us to do, sort of a modular submission before that. Try to work with the company, work with the innovators, right? Try to bring the best technology, to the market, to the patients. That's their mission. So we clearly benefit from that, right? So what they say is what they did. Yeah, I think that I cannot thank them enough for the collaborative nature of that review and addressing the questions and give us the opportunity to address the questions. I mean, we have been, working outside of US in many other countries. I think not all regulators are the same. They may have the same heart, right? So but they may not have the same practice. So this is really, the best country, for innovation, for innovative medical adoption. And I think let's keep that, ecosystem thriving. And, we all benefit from it.
So one of the things that you've just hired a new marketing director. Friend of ours, Fern, who's fantastic, coming from UPenn. And I think one of the things that you've talked about and she's talked about is this vision for how MEVION is going to support customers operationally beyond just the technology, beyond just the system itself. So talk a little bit about how you want to partner with and support customers in maybe a different way than has existed historically with equipment vendors.
Yeah, that's a great question. In the end, customer success is our success, right? We cannot live in vacuum. And customer success is being measured on a lot of parameters, right? First, and I believe for any center, the most important parameter is can they treat the reasonable number of patients within reasonable hours, right? For that operation to be running. Then after that, there's clearly, research opportunities, there's talents, attraction, there's other halo effects and all that measure a proton center success. Then to get, reasonable, patients, in the center today, even in the US environment, there's still reimbursement challenges, right? With proton therapy, there's still insurance companies, need to be better educated on what proton therapy can bring to the table. In the end, this is modality save the total cost of the system over a long period of years, right? It's not a cost center. It's actually a value provider.
Right.
So that message may or may not be agreed by all insurance companies as yet, right? So these are the things we have to work with our partners, those medical institutions, together so that the patient rejection rate should be lower, much lower, right? I think, say, for example, Dr. Steve Frank's recent article about the benefit of proton therapy bring to head and neck patients, right? It's a tremendous amount, especially over a long duration of time, right? In terms of overall survival benefit, in terms of much reduced, side effects and the cost of treating those side effects, right? So there's a tremendous amount of a human value to it and also economic value to it as well. So how do we, communicate all these messages to our insurance companies, help all our proton centers to be able to get the patients they want to treat it. Then today, getting reimbursed or not is one thing. The other thing is a timely reimbursement, right? Sometimes most patients cannot wait. Many cancer cannot wait, right? So if you ask me to wait for 4 to 6, weeks, a lot of patients just don't have that luxury to do that. So we need to, prime the system better. I think Fern, as you mentioned, right? She worked at, Penn Medicine for years and has, built their program very successful, right? Penn Medicine has been a beacon in our community, right? But for their leadership in proton therapy and bring more proton therapy to their main center and also their satellite sites as well, right? So that's a great amount of achievement. How do we sort of copy paste that achievement to many other centers, because not all centers have the sort of the staffing, the depth of what pain medicine has.
Right.
So as vendors, what we want to do is bring the best practices to all the other centers so that we can make all the other proton centers, especially our customer centers, to be more successful.
Yeah, I love that. So just a couple more questions, Tina. What are some of the exciting things on the horizon for MEVION? What are you guys, you had the big announcement about the FIT system. What's next over the subsequent 2, 3, 5 years that you can talk about? I know there's probably some proprietary stuff, but what are you most excited about from a technology standpoint with MEVION going forward?
Yeah, I think we're living a very exciting time.
Yeah.
And we have 2 platforms. One is gantry-based platform with 13,000 patients treated on that platform. And that platform is still evolving. We can treat faster with, even better integration about some of the other tools. Then we also have this fixed beam platform with patient, treated upright, right? That's a more nascent platform, needs a lot more R&D investment and working closely with our medical institutions, our partners. And, after the first patient treatment, clearly we are having, a lot of work to be done, ahead of us to realize all these things we think is really ahead of us. First is the breadth of indications we can treat within this new platform. Then the second is efficient workflow, right? Then third is the superior treatment plan quality, right? So we are already doing all the early work as we speak right now, but for the next, I think 2 to 3 years, those would be demonstrated, demonstrated not only just on paper, but demonstrated in patients and all the studies we need to work together. Then in addition, there's a lot of, with AI, really empowering this innovative economy we live in. There are many other tools in the past we looked at. They will not bring so-called medical benefit, at least to the degree we can appreciate to the medical world as yet. Today, we're revisiting a lot of new technology platform in terms of imaging, in terms of innovation, integration, and all that. Then we believe in the next, at least within the next 5 years, we will be able to bring some of these new changes to the world to be integrated on our platform so that proton therapy would be much easier to use.
Right.
And today, this is still, a technology needs a lot of training, right? Which I said before, but down the road, we want it to be as simple as possible so that we can deploy it to many more institutions, to many more countries. Maybe talent is a limiting factor.
Yeah, right. So last question, what are you personally most proud of over the last 5 years? What's something, what does Tina you say, you know what, I can't believe that I did this or accomplished this, or this was very rewarding, or this just makes me feel good knowing that I was part of what?
Okay,
what are you proud of?
There are many proud moments, in my last 5 years.
And it can be a few. It doesn't just have to be one.
So initially I do want to say the FDA clearance of our, US baby S250-FIT, that new product.
I don't think people appreciate the fact that that's many years of work.
Yeah. The project itself took 3+ years, but in reality, it built on our 2 decades of innovative work, right? Yeah. So the team we built and all that, that's clearly one of the high moments. I think more importantly, it's the human touch. Yeah. When I see the patients, like a Gracie line and talking to her mom, looking at the difference, what that make. And also for kids who cannot get this, right? Some of the side effects they carry, which is going to be a burden to the family, not only to the family, but to the society. These are the things we can avoid, right? So those are the moments give me see, hey, because last time when we have the Huntsman Cancer Institute patient coming over, we say, yes, this is getting cancer is unfortunate, but this boy is fortunate to be treated by proton therapy. However, our opening was delayed by at least 3 months. If we had it open 3 months earlier, more patients like him right? Could
Right.
be NOAA, could be treated
Right.
with this modality. So that's what keeps us driving. We
Yeah.
have to run. We cannot just run, stall, right? So we have to run. So for me, those are the sort of the best moments is you truly feel like, hey, this is not something just on the wall, on a piece of paper, right? It's something with all the flesh and blood.
Yeah.
You can feel and you can touch. It warms your heart, it warms my heart, warms all my employees' hearts, right? So I think that we are collectively as a team and living in this great ecosystem collectively together, making a difference in the world.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tina, and thank you for sharing your personal story and the story of MEVION and all the great things that you guys are doing in the proton therapy space. We're fortunate to have you personally involved and the company involved, and as you said, we're changing lives and we're making a difference for people that are going through something that's really, really difficult. And it sounds like for you and for me, I know that's something that is just really rewarding to be a part of, and I'm excited to see where things head.